Not. What do you what do you mean by long? How many hours is long?
Like by long, I mean like long downtime between turns.
I think it depends who you're playing with and what game. Like, I can play a lot of games in like 2 hours, but then other times you can play something and it can take 4, 5, 6 hours. So, that puts a lot of people off. I don't, because some people like that quicker game, but it's really good fun. Like, you don't notice the time. Like, that's the thing. Like, people think it's really long, but when you're in it, like, and you're making those decisions and you're having a really good time, you just forget the time anyway, and then you look and it's dark outside and you're stuck to your chair and you're like, oh, I've been here a very long time.
You're gonna ask more questions, Kate. That was good.
Yeah.
Just curious, because I've been to the more shorter, boot, turn kind of game. So, I mean, it could be a long game, but as long as the time between turns is short, I'm good.
It can be. It depends what game and if you've played it before. It's like any game, really. If you're new to the game and you've just learnt the rules, obviously it takes a bit longer. But once you know the rules and you've kind of picked up a bit of strategy, and if you're playing with everyone else that knows the rules and knows their kind of strategy, it can go quite quickly. But I like a long game. I'd rather play one long game than 3 short ones.
Yeah.
People call me weird for that.
It's understandable.
Yeah. I mean, Kate, I'm actually kind of impressed that you're aware that you enjoy that type of game and kind of conscious of it, because with my kids, it's like, well, what kind of games do you like? Do you want a shorter game or a longer game? Ooh, let's play a long game. Hold on, what's going on over there? So we actually had a really good Thursday night Pandemic. I played Base Pandemic, and I'd forgotten how that game makes sense to new players. And so many of the games that I love are so complicated that if you're brand new to board gaming, that first game is going to be miserable for everybody. So that was kind of nice. Speaking of that, though, I think it's
Wi-Fi. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries. Would you? Are you then able to just keep on using your phone?
Or I'm going to just get on my laptop quickly. I can swap it over really quickly.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I use my mic then.
Sounds good. Good. I did share the chat over here in the chat. I shared the link to Pop Out Live Chat so that if people have questions or comments, they can say something. I have here the Esoteric Order of Gamers Commands and Colors rules summary and unit summary, terrain summary, all these things, like kind of the things to help you play the game.
Cool.
Yep. Oh, and we're live. And we have been for like the last 3 minutes.
You were live, Kate.
Oh, no. I didn't know.
I was going to say something, but I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to intrude. And plus, just Katie, TC can edit anything out, so it really is not a big deal.
Nope.
Are you a family-friendly show? No, I'm joking. I won't say anything.
Okay. Yeah, we do try to be. I think
We try, but I try to edit it, but sometimes things slip through, and then I really quickly fix it.
Yeah. But for TC, family friendly involves taking a 7-year-old to go see the new It.
Yeah, so go figure.
Very family friendly indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that even allowed in America?
Yes.
With the parent.
With the parent.
Mm-hmm.
Are you actually joking?
No, my son is really into horror movies right now. And
won't be for long.
Yeah, so we're going to give it a shot, see what happens.
Right,
Sounds
can you
good.
hear me?
Yes, and it actually looks like you're broadcasting through those. All right.
Right, can you hear me now?
Can hear you now, yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry,
sounds
this
good.
is probably the most unorganized episode ever, but I'm here.
No, actually, it's not. We had last
Oh my
episode about
God,
Roll
no.
for the Galaxy. We had to wait for about about 40 minutes or so because the internet wasn't good in the side of the house that he had access to. So he's kind of waiting for people to go to bed so he could move to the other side of the house, which it was fine. The episode ended up being amazing. It was about 45 minutes late, but so we're still within the realm of. Katie, how organized does this seem? Really, you're among friends here. You're among like people, especially you and TC with the wargaming thing. I tend to be the Euro gamer, so I don't.
I'm a
Katie-
Euro gamer as well.
Katie, you've got to help me convince Joe to play Time of Crisis more. That's your job.
I
play
don't
it with
understand
people
why you
that-
wouldn't play it. It's amazing. It's a bit like a Euro game anyway. It's got deck building.
I'm sorry, Joe.
It's the battles, man. It's the battles and the event rolls. They just turn me off with how long the game lasts. I love the deck building system. I love so many things in the game. It is 90% a game I love and 10% a game I can't stand.
I played a game with 4 people yesterday, and it did take 4 hours.
It's long. I would take a long game. I'm okay with a longer game. I do tend to be somewhere on the spectrum between where you're at, being proudly, a long game player, and where Kate's at, not. But I'm somewhere on that spectrum. But I don't. Yeah, for me, the longer game needs to meet certain criteria, and I'm a little bit more picky about it, I would say, with a longer game. I don't accept randomness very much, period. But I will accept it in cooperative games and with shorter games. But when a long game has the type of game-altering randomness that you'll find, if everything was like the blue takeovers, you know what I mean? Like when you do a takeover in the Senate, those dice rolls never bothered me. But the actual battles themselves were, tailor-made to be swingy. And Anyway, we've already had this discussion, TC. Thanks for bringing it up.
Oh, anytime I can poke you, Joe, you don't want to take it.
Poke.
Yeah, and he always just says this because it just immediately accentuates that divide between where I'm coming from and where people who enjoy war games and thematic games usually come from. Though I still consider myself a thematic gamer, just a much less tolerant one, I suppose. Not of people, of games. I'll play with anybody. The only thing I never judge the person, but I do judge the behaviors.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should never play a game together then. Yeah.
I want to play a game with Joe so bad.
Oh no, TC is. We're gonna play something together. Yeah, yeah. No, we're going to. And the thing is, I just think it takes the right individuals to be with. You can't really be sitting down and wanting to be intensely strategic in those types of games. Though I do feel like a lot of the crowd that plays, at least a lot of times that we play those games, people are getting super, invested in winning, and it's like, this is a lighter game because of these dice rolls. You can't take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay,
Anywho,
do we start? Sorry for derailing you, Joe.
Probably. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Longview Podcast, in which we take a deep look at games that have been around, stood the test of time, and had a positive response from other hobbyists and people that are very experienced in the board gaming realm. And today we have an extra special first-time Longview guest who is a bona fide female wargamer, Katie from Katie's Game Quarter. How are you doing today, Katie?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I feel a bit under pressure now though, because you said experienced.
Let's make it enthusiastic.
Content.
Enthusiastic.
Yes.
Enthusiastic. And I said, you are an ambassador for an underrepresented place. An underrepresented group, and that is women that play war games and just women in general in the hobby. And I'm so excited that you are so passionate about this hobby of tabletop, and that that you're specifically addressing an area that's that tends to be it's crazy to me because now I feel like I'm surrounded by female war gamers because here I am talking to TC, whose wife is a wargamer, and now with you, Katie, and we've also got TC's little daughter. Not little daughter. You're not little, Katie. You're smaller. You are the youngest one.
I'm
Yes,
adorable.
you are adorable. That's right. Yes, you were in our game where we just talked about games that have the color pink in them, and that was awesome. So, but yeah, we're now. I'm surrounded, but that's not the case everywhere. So anyway, thank you, Katie, so much for making gaming a less stigmatized for those groups.
Thank you very much. It was very accidental, but I'm glad where it's going. So it's nice to be recognised for that. So thank you.
Yeah, but I love I following you on Twitter and just the reviews that you put out of games. Like you have a very that's why I say you're an expert, Katie. You're putting out pretty in-depth reviews, and your first impressions even are quite interesting to read through. So check out any of Katie's stuff. Katie's Game Corner. Katie'sGameCorner.com.
I want to pipe up and say it's really awesome that you're also discussing mental health issues. I work in the healthcare industry, and that's amazing. And being female, that takes a lot of guts. And so thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, would I count as a wargamer?
Maybe.
Ooh.
Do you want to be a wargamer, Kate?
I'm not exactly sure what kind of war games there are, but I think I consider myself one. I do wage war and cosmic encounter.
Well, I think that there's lots of different levels of wargamer. There's lots of different places that you can be a wargamer from. And to be honest, Cosmic Encounter is at its basest structure a kind of a construct on top of the age-old game played with a deck of cards called War.
Poker?
Right?
Rex?
War, yeah.
War. No, War. The game of war.
Yeah,
like one game, one card versus another card. And everything else is kind of like gravy on top of that system. So sure, Katie, Katie, I'm doing it already. I haven't called you gentlemen yet, though, so we're good so far. Okay, I'm just gonna call everybody ladies. I'm gonna say ladies, and you know what, TC?
I'm good at that.
That's
You're a lady.
that is a
You
compliment,
all
sir.
now.
That is a compliment. So it is. Somebody on Through the Ages, the app, which I don't know if you play that, Katie, but it is phenomenal. And TC, I want to play with you on it.
I will get it.
But they had like two different avatars to choose from, a male one and a female one. And the developers clearly intended for me to choose whatever I identify as. But I liked the way that the female avatar looked. I thought, that the male avatar was looked like that crappy actor from the 90s Hercules shows. And I was like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, that guy looks like, he has half a brain cell. And so I chose the woman. And now every time that it says that I have an aggression or something, it says like something about waiting for her turn because I chose that female avatar. So yeah, I got a game that's calling me using female pronouns with me, and I don't really care. So TC,
yes, sir.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy
this
birthday.
is a really awesome birthday present, Katie. Thank you for being on.
You're welcome. Woohoo!
I'm not going to say your age, TC, but I'll just give a little hint. It rhymes with Schmorty Schmive.
Yeah, I think this is the year I'm turning grognard.
Does that mean now you're only going to play ASL and say that all these other
games
games are not heavy enough?
If it's not Pasagor, I don't care.
Player. You need to find one other player and only play with them and not actually leave your house. That's that's the grognard side. But that's the thing. Like,
come on now.
Katie, that's specifically what I'm saying here. I'm trying to make a distinction. I didn't mean to try cutting deep. I was saying that's I think what a lot of people think about when they consider wargaming in general. That individuals that play war games, it's kind of like a dying breed. That you need that these people are not interested in getting others into the hobby because they just want one other player that they can sit there and play their simulations with, and that they can play that way they can trust that they know the system and that they're as passionate and involved as they are. And I'm seeing what you're doing, Katie, as much an antithesis to that. Like you are much going against that current, And if you check like the wargaming threads that can be on BGG, there can be some pretty like toxic anti everything else. And I definitely think, Katie, that you are all about inclusivity, and that was my compliment, and I didn't mean to start offending you before I said that.
I'm joking. It's fine. No, it's fine. You know, I get a lot of abuse as well, so it's funny because all the time, like, I know this conversation isn't around politics, the politics of wargaming, but while we're talking about it, I get so much. Can I say crap?
Yes.
Crap allowed?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can say crap.
baloney.
Yeah. Actually, you can say just about. Yeah, you can say anything you want to. Just try to avoid the George Carlin 7 words. You know, the
horse poo.
But yeah, and TC can go in, and TC himself was the one that caused our first problem. So it was him that had to go back in and put like a whoopee cushion sound over his voice.
I get. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Go ahead. I say, like, yeah, that's what I do.
You get what do you get? Crap.
Yeah, I get so much crap as well of people like that who are like, "Oh, you're not a real wargamer because you don't play this," and it's like,
That's not a war game. Coin, that's not a war game.
I have never it's that kind of question, like, what is a war game? And I think, why does it matter?
Exactly.
Like, if you're enjoying a game that might have a war theme or might simulate a specific war or might be about whatever, there's games about everything. It doesn't matter if you enjoy something.
Subsistence farming.
Why does it matter?
Germany, right?
I love farming. I love games about farming as well. I love games about everything. But why does it matter? Like, why do I need to be a real war gamer? What does that mean? What do I benefit from that? Like, and that's something that I try to get away from. Not that I don't mind being called a war gamer. That's fine, because I think I probably am. But it's that kind of conversation, like, why does it matter? Like, let's all enjoy stuff. And I think it turns a lot of people of all genders away from the hobby because of that stigma, or because of that, oh, if you don't play this game or that game, you're not a real war gamer, or I'm going to give you crap. I'm allowed to say that. I'm going to give you crap because you don't like
what you want to say, Katie.
Specific games. And I think, what? Let's just enjoy games. And then people are like, oh, you're too positive. Like, everyone just you just want everyone to get along. And it's like, this is supposed to be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like the role-playing, the board game role-playing side of things. Like, I believe everybody thinks role players are kind of like on the really dark side of things, when that's not true at all.
But you get it with heavy Euro gamers as well sometimes, or people, and I wrote about this recently, like a tweet, and it was like, why does it matter? Like, enjoy what you enjoy, let other people enjoy what they enjoy, and if you want to, try and get people to come and enjoy what you enjoy. And that's what I try to do. So, but in war games especially, like, I never kind of meant to go in this direction. Like, I didn't know that I was going to really enjoy war games. I didn't know it was something that I was going to start writing about. It just kind of evolved and happened. And the deeper I get into it, the more I see it. It's like, even when I go to conventions and stuff, I sometimes feel a bit on edge as well. Like yesterday, no offense, they were all lovely, but I went to like a small convention to play some war games with some other people, and there was 2 women there, probably 30, 40 men and 2 women, and all of those men were so nice to me, but I still felt intimidated. And that's what I want to change. Like, that needs to change, or else women aren't going to want to play war games because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I agree. And it's carrying a stigma right now, and you're not being represented. It's catering to, because it is such a male dominated field right now. The advertisements, just the services made available do tend to focus on who they assume will attend. But the more that we can try to get companies, get individuals, just first of all, you're doing your job by trying to get people into your part of the hobby. And that's the way that it's not going to go the way of the dinosaur. I'll tell you that straight up. I've seen that happen firsthand recently with my game group, where when you play war games and long games in general, they tend to be ones where you want to trust others at the table are not going to make it a negative experience because, you know, like you're investing more. And I think that there's kind of a little current of just, you know, of elitism that's almost, it's intentional to get people from, you know, to get the plebs or, you know, the pariah, you know, the lower class, whatever you want to use, whatever words. I'm sure there's probably some witty British term for this that Katie, I don't know, but
I genuinely do not know what you're trying to say right now.
Uninitiated, the uninitiated. How about that? So these kind of like attitudes are to keep the uninitiated from poisoning an experience. And I feel like a lot of times, well, great, you just had a good experience, but then what happens when later on down the road, two of your friends move away and now you haven't initiated anyone because you pushed all the uninitiated away. And I'm dealing with that right now in my game group, Katie, and I think that first of all, just doing what you're doing and evangelizing and making it less stigmatized for women is awesome. And I'm hoping that some of the things that we do today and later on, we're hoping to get like an actual just discussion where we can focus solely on this topic and get TC's wife, Carissa, who's a you know, self-proclaimed female wargamer who just, you know, and she's historical wargamer, loves the history of it. But yeah, that's we will definitely have a great discussion about that when it comes. But thank you so much for giving us that perspective. That's a really interesting story.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Carissa has a hard time going to some conventions sometimes because she feels underrepresented. But then she'll play a game where she plays the British and just own everyone, which is always fun to see.
Go, Mom.
Yeah, she's been a lot of fun on the things that I've talked with us. So we really wanted to get the two of you together sometime, Katie. So hopefully that'll be possible, and we'll be able to do that soon. So
definitely, yeah.
For today's episode, we are actually talking about a game that is kind of, I think that, you know, your heavy duty, what some people call grognard, which I had to Google when I first heard it. You know, it means like an old soldier, and it's what you're kind of, you know, it just means an old soldier. But
I thought it was like the name of a show.
No, this is according to like Wikipedia, I believe. It's just an old soldier, and I think that the wargame community has co-opted that as like the word to describe their, like, you know, the hobbyists that play a specific type of game. And that was why I used it that way kind of earlier, Katie. But I think that those self-identifying grognards would point at a game like Commands and Colors Ancients, and there might be some division about them, but I'm certain that there would be many in the group that would consider it not technically a war game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because to be a war game, it needs to really just be for the sole purpose of evoking the battle and having rules for everything. And here in Commands and Colors Ancients, so we're talking about a fairly accessible system. It's not the first in the system. We started with Richard Borg designing Battle Cry about the Civil War, the U.S. Civil War. And what Battle Cry really did is made this command system that you can then hear in Commands and Colors Ancients, where you are going to have a hand of cards that you're drawing out of like a common deck. And these cards will say like left flank, right flank, you know, one in each of these flanks. So you got different sort of sections on the battlefield. And when you play a card, you're able to like activate units in that region or activate a certain amount of units based on what cards you played. So far, am I doing okay, Katie?
Yes, you are. Thank you. Well done.
Okay, great. So my experience has actually been mainly with Memoir 44, which took the system of Battle Cry, and as I'd heard by light wargamers before on the Dice Tower, I heard Sam Healy say that he felt that Battle Cry was broken because there was a single card that just said activate everything, and he said that's just super broken. So Memoir 44 took that card out, so it was just the one card that let you activate no matter where your units were, and now you don't have that. But then it also set the conflict in World War II, because it's a lot of things start with like the D-Day conflict, and it is you know, 2-player game, and you can have like 5 different copies of Memoir 44 and lay them all next to each other and play this epic invasion game. But basically, Memoir 44 uses custom dice to be able to solve the battle. So depending on what unit it is, you'll be looking for that specific custom dice symbol. And but just in general, like Memoir 44 has like actual plastic miniatures. I actually don't know. I've never seen a copy of Battlecry, so I'm not sure what the pieces look like. But I know that the plastic miniatures in Memoir 44 definitely, especially with its publisher being Days of Wonder, made it available to a much wider audience and pushed the game in that direction. There is actually a Longview episode about Memoir 44, and I highly recommend that you check that out. It was with the previous host, Jeff Gamble, and he did a really, really great job of describing the specific gameplay. So if you're looking for a gameplay description, I would advise that you check out that one. Jeff was just much more, he really got, you know, the description of the game out. And TC and I are more focused on trying to talk about what people are you know, what's at the core of the experience and not so much the actual rules. So if you're looking for the rules, though, listen to that episode of The Longview. That gives you an idea of what Memoir 44 is like. And now let's discuss Commands and Colors Ancients, because Commands and Colors Ancients is, in a lot of ways, kind of like where this system that's almost designed for accessibility meets together with like high-level strategy and a genre of war games that are known as block war games, where you have like a wooden block with a sticker or a screen printing on one side of it. You can see what the unit is, but your opponent cannot see what the unit is, which is a whole genre in and of itself. Is that, so far, am I doing okay still, Katie?
You can't. Both sides can see what the unit is.
In this one, or is block war games generally always like that?
It depends on the game actually, but Commands and Colors you can, because that's going to influence what units you use and which units you try and fight, that kind of thing. So this is a bit different, but yes, in some block war games that is the case. Yes.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for helping me with that. I'm not sure exactly where my knowledge is going to be wrong about this, because it is kind of based on what I've seen here and there and what I've got on this wonderful esoteric Order of Wargamers help sheet that I'm looking at too. So
you're doing a great job, Joe.
You are. Come on, you can do it.
We believe in you.
Yes. So Commands and Colors Ancients, though, you are going to be taking. It looks like a Rome versus Carthage ancient conflict. So is there other ones here that we are? You know, is there any other things in this specific box? Or is it mainly you're playing as the same side versus a different side, and the battles are what changes?
Yes. So you have basically, I've only played Ancients, which is what we're going to talk about today. There are different ones, but yeah, it's basically different scenarios. So your maps can change a little bit to include terrain or your army setup. So how do I explain this? Like in certain games, you can, in your rule book, it'll have, you can set up your army this way or that way. So different levels of complexity to make it easier or more difficult.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like L5R in the fact where like you choose like different armies you can play as, and you can change up the cards.
Mm-hmm. The cards stay the same, but basically at the beginning, if you'll have your row of your army will be in kind of a row. So you'll have like maybe cavalry at the front, and then you'll have smaller units at the back, and then your generals right at the back, and then different kind of rows of your army on your map. There's different scenarios where that changes to make it more complex, basically. So you might have a bigger army with more units, or more powerful units, or more cavalry, or more that kind of thing. So there's quite a lot of game in one box, and it's nice to change it up. Or you can put
scenarios.
You can put exactly. I can't explain them all. I can't explain one probably.
I would like to butt in and say that there are multiple expansions for this game, because I've seen them at the game store.
Yes. Lots. But yeah, you can put terrain on there to make maneuvering around the map more difficult. Different rules apply for that. So you can make it as easy or as complex as you like, which is something that I quite like about the game. And it's one of the only hex encounter games I've actually played. I play a lot of war games, but this style of game is new to me. I've played Commands and Colours quite a bit, but this kind of style of game is quite new to me, and I love it. It's really exciting.
Where would you say that your favorite, what's your favorite style of war game? Or I guess what are you most comfortable with? What do you mainly play, Katie?
I play a lot of coin.
Okay.
So I play a lot of coin games.
Mm-hmm.
And I play a lot of coin games.
Yeah.
And I play a lot of card-driven games. So I'm all about trying to play a good hand of cards. But that's why Commands and Colours is quite nice. Because, yes, you've got your units, but it is primarily card-driven. So whatever you choose to do is based on what hand you've got at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what, Dad mentioned that there are, like, expansions. Do you play with those? And if so, which one has to be your favorite?
I haven't yet. So, not a good question, but there's so many.
Yeah, you got Commands and Colours expansion pack
5 that I know of.
6. 1 through 6. So, and then a whole other offshoot. Yeah, there is a wealth. So what's nice about this is if you do get into Commands and Colours Ancients, you will have a whole system. And if you do find that you enjoy these ancient battles, then you can find more conflicts. Because here in the base box, you get Rome versus Carthage. In extra expansions will come with different forces, and then a new set of battles, a new set of historical battles for you to take part in. So, Katie, how does this sort of system, Commands and Colours Ancients, how does it depict the ancient part of that title?
Good question.
Like the units that are involved.
You all have to dress up like Romans. No, I guess. Let me think of how to just word this. I guess the armies are similar to how the armies would have been like that. So there's a lot of cavalry in there, and I don't actually know.
Infantry, cavalry, and elephants. I see elephants.
There are elephants, and those elephants are not nice elephants. They're not.
Can you just run elephants all over the armies?
Well, that's basically what happens. It's like if you are fighting with your elephants, they're going to run all over the map and cause carnage. So I don't like them very much.
They sound amazing.
So I'm looking at the units described here, and it looks like the Carthaginians have elephants, the Romans have elephants, but not all of the units that you'll be playing with are on both sides. So is that a way that they depict kind of the historical differences where the Romans have heavy war machines, whereas the Carthaginians didn't have access to that, or that just wasn't part of their army composition?
Exactly. Thank you for explaining that a lot better than I ever could. But yeah, that's right. It's kind of how it would have been back in the day, I guess. And both armies play very differently. They might look the same, just some blocks on a map. But when you start playing and getting into those scenarios, you can definitely see the differences and what strength each army has. It's not the same, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. So, is setup in this game, like I've played Battle Lore as well in the system, and that one used setup was a large part of the game in the newest version, the Fantasy Flight version of Battle Lore. In this, is setup basically all based on the scenario book, and then you just take it from a specific loadout and like a units in this hex and whatnot?
Yeah, in the base game, it's that pretty simple. You've got your different scenarios, and that's it just has pictures of where your armies are going to stand, and any terrain, anything like that you might need, and then you get your deck of cards. It's pretty straightforward, which is nice. That's one thing. Sorry, slightly derailing, but that's something I really love about the game is it's pretty to pick up the mechanics. It's really straightforward. But knowing what to do with your cards and knowing how to strategize and when to do different things and different actions that's something that is quite complex and can be a bit of a brain burner, which is one of the reasons I love this game, even though I've only played it a few times myself. And I try and introduce this to people that might not necessarily have played war games before, because it is pretty simple to pick up. It's not intimidating at all, really.
Sure. How would you sell it to them? How would you sell it to somebody who's not played war games? Like, here, Kate, you've played Cosmic Encounter, so you've technically played. You're a war gamer, Kate, but you know, because you want to be one, you can be one. The thing is, though, Katie, could you try to sell Kate on Commands and Colors Ancients?
Good luck.
Well, I think, like you were asking earlier before we kind of went live, is it you weren't sure if you want to play a long game? It's only a couple of hours long, so it's not too long. It's kind of giving you that bit of historical flavor with your different armies, which is quite nice. And it's really good fun. You've got to think on your feet a lot. You have to make different decisions. And you get to kick somebody else's ass, which is always quite
Nice.
Hey, I did that to Dad a lot.
And it's simple. Like, that's what I love it. And I know so many people say this about so many different war games, about them being elegant in design, but it really is. Like, it's really well put together. It's quite simple to pick up. It's one of those that's easy to learn, but can probably take quite a while to master. And I think that's quite nice as well. Like, I don't know about you, but sorry, I'm just going off on one now. I don't know about you, but when I play games, I like to, each game I play, learn more strategy, really get to know that game. And I think there's something quite exciting about knowing that you're picking it up and you're finding different ways and different strategies, but it's not a brain burner. It's not going to take all of your energy just to learn the mechanics. I don't mind games like that, but I think it's quite nice because it gives you both. It's quite light in comparison to a lot of war games, but you really do have to think on your feet, which is fun, I think, anyway.
Is the time between turns long or shorter?
It depends who you're playing with, but I think it's quite reactive. So obviously, you know, it's 2-player as well, so that kind of cuts play time down a lot. And you will have a hand of cards in front of you, and you'll want to be, and you'll draw more cards. So you're going to have a little bit of time thinking about your next move. But once you kind of get that strategy down, it's going to be easy to figure out where you want to go next. I don't know what else to say, really.
Oh, that was
gone on a tangent
great.
then.
No, that was exactly, like, this is your episode to tangent, Katie. This is
away.
Please
away.
do. That is exactly what
Do
I want. That
not
was
say
excellent.
that. If you do not say that. I like
Katie,
talking.
I like, and we like listening. So just so you know,
Woo!
next time, don't think you need to apologize for any tangents. We're here to listen to you, and so is our audience. They're gonna love hearing your perspective, and that was really good there. So, Kate, what's your reaction to that? Are you now, you know, would you like to play this one, knowing that it's 2 players, so you're gonna have little downtime, and it's one of those where the overhead is going to be fairly light, but you're saying, Katie, that just because it's light, because it's so elegant, any overhead that is there in that system is very much rewarded in terms of the amount of strategic depth here and tactical decisions.
Yes.
Like,
Sorry.
I think I'm sold on this one. Like,
All right.
you have to think on your feet. I love thinking on my feet, and I love kicking my dad's butt. So I'm sold.
Yeah. Great job, Katie. How about, why don't Katie now go on another rant here and tell, you know, this TC is a coin gamer,
Yes,
also loves Time of Crisis, so very much similar taste, but he's never played Commands and Colors. What are the things coming at it from a more, you know, what was it that attracted you to the system? And, you know, maybe tell us how you got started and stuff. But, you know, I would like you to try to kind of cater that towards the same, you know, TC and you are almost kindred souls. And then TC's wife is very similar to that too, where you love these coin games. and other historical conflict games that are, like CDG systems, card-driven games. So go ahead and please tell me as much as you would. Please rant.
Come on, put me on the spot here.
I'll start off. Let me drop you a little nugget here. With Carissa in particular, she really didn't care for coin games all that much. Like the first 3 volumes, because they were modern warfare games, and that really didn't appeal to her. It was Liberty or Death that really caught her attention, and she was really invested in this one. Okay, and she was so invested that she got an email from Harold, and she wanted to edit his rule book, and she got to. So if you open a copy of Liberty or Death and look at the thank you credits, and you see a Carissa Reed, that's my wife. So I have the wonderful pleasure of having a coin game on my shelf with my wife's name in it, which is phenomenal.
That's impressive.
That is so cool. And it took a theme that she enjoyed to enjoy that system, right? Because she didn't want to play Afghanistan. She didn't want to play Andean Abyss, which was the Colombia. She didn't want to do the what was the other one? Cuba Libre. Those just didn't grab her attention. It was Liberty or Death. So, I mean, me in particular, you talking about Command & Colors Ancients, I'm really interested in what it was thematically about the game that drew you to it.
So, first of all, usually I'm not a thematic person, so that's something to, don't worry, we'll get back onto theme. But generally, I have never been a thematic gamer. I am now. I'm kind of evolving, because when you start playing historical games and games with a lot of theme, obviously that perks your interest, and that's something I really enjoy about war games. I'm learning a lot, but I never used to be. Like, I do play a lot of Euro games as well. I haven't forgotten your question. I'm getting there in a roundabout way. And it didn't bother me what the theme was. I've always been about mechanics. So it's always been about looking at a rule book or looking at a new game that's coming out, what the mechanics are and if I'm going to enjoy it. And initially it was the card-driven side of things that drew me to Commands and Colours. I had never actually heard of it, to be honest. But one of my friends that loves it, you know, if you know me or you read my blog or you follow me on any social media, you'll see that I love GMT games. A lot of people think I'm a secret, like, spy that works for them because I constantly talk about their games. But I just really, really like them. And so I thought, you know what, let's give it a go. Card-driven. Perfect. Think I'm going to be into that. And then it's only once I started playing these kind of games that I started to get into the theme. So that's still something that I'm learning, something that's still quite new to me and quite exciting. And that's another reason I do like these kind of games, because I'm learning as I'm playing games. I don't know if I'll be honest, because I have to be. I don't know if Commands and Colours for me is that interesting when it comes to theme. Like, for me personally, I don't think that's why I play it. I don't know if that's the answer you wanted, but I'll be honest, you know, for me, I just really love that mechanic. And as I was saying to Kate, how it's quite simple to play, but it really can be a bit of a brain burner and it can be quite strategic. But Commands and Colours Ancients, because that's the only one I've played, I don't know if I'm that invested on the theme yet, but that could change with more plays, to be honest. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I really appreciate your honesty there.
What is the theme?
So the theme is Ancients, and there's different ones. So there's, off the top of my head, there's Napoleons as well, which I really, really want to play. But it's basically the 3000 BC, and that's I'm really bad at explaining games. It's the dawn of military history. So you've got the Romans, and you've got who are the other side?
It's the Carthaginians. So like Rome versus Carthage. The Punic Wars, I believe is what they called them.
We're talking ancient warfare with like the Romans, I think. And
that's it.
It's like I'm not sure if I like that theme, but I still want to give it a go.
Well, that's to me like I seem like I'm being ignorant here, and I'm not meaning to be, but the theme didn't really interest me, so that was kind of why it took me a while. It took me quite a few different other games before I even tried to play it. I know Commands and Colours is a classic, and everyone's heard of it. I hadn't heard it for a while. So that's a theme that's quite new to me, but I'm looking forward to playing more and hopefully being able to be more immersed in that theme.
Nice, yeah. So continuing with TC's question, or to try to like tell TC, you know, what is it? He likes Time of Crisis quite a bit. You know, it sounds to me, Katie, like you went for this game because of your love for GMT, the game publisher, and just kind of like an overall trust for what they come out with. Does that sound accurate?
Kind of, but I had a friend that knows me quite well. I play a lot of games with, knows I like card-driven games, and you've got your dice rolling in there. And I wrote a blog post when I first played Commands and Colours, talking about my first impressions. And I'll be honest, I hate dice rolling in games usually. I'm somebody that likes to be able to strategize everything. I don't like depending on luck, really, if I can avoid it. But like Time of Crisis, I really enjoy that, and that's got a lot of dice rolling in. And Commands and Colours, like the way the dice are used are actually very clever. And the different symbols that are on the dice, and it makes it quite tense, which is quite nice. It's not stressful. Usually with dice rolling games, I get stressed out because I'm a very bad dice roller and I always get really crappy numbers come up.
Just like someone else we know.
I would say Mark, one of my favorite designers, Mark Herman, who is fantastic, by the way, has a really good saying that I like to repeat. It's like, the dice favor no one.
Yes, I would say that. Yeah, dice favor no one.
I think sorry.
Go ahead.
But it's just really clever the way it's done. Like it might, you know, there probably are, and I know that there are lots of different games that include dice and cards, but there's just something about that combination together that's actually really enjoyable. And I think another thing that's really nice about Commands and Colours, I don't mind if battle's difficult and hard to work out, but battle is really simple because of the dice have just got symbols on. You just roll the dice, and whatever symbols come up, that's how you're going to fight. So it's not like in some war games where you have to roll dice, then roll some more dice, and then check charts, tables to see what's going on and if you've won or if you're dead or whatever. It's really simple, and I think that's something else that makes it really accessible and enjoyable, because it's quite light-hearted in that way. Again, like I said earlier, and I know I'm repeating myself, but picking up the game is really simple, so it makes that more enjoyable and gives you more time to actually enjoy and strategize.
Well, good things are worth repeating, Katie.
I do repeat myself a lot, I know.
So I have a question right quick. Come on, so I know did you have to sticker your copy of Command and Colors Ancients?
Yes, I did.
Look at
I just want to know how long it took you, because the first block war game I got from GMT, I was excited. It was Triumph and Tragedy. I'm like, yeah, and I opened it up and I realized very quickly I was going to be spending the rest of the afternoon putting stickers on things.
I'll be honest, I haven't stickered all of mine. Luckily I've played, my friend's got a copy, and he had a spare copy that he bought for his nephew, and his nephew kind of just threw it in the corner and never looked at it. And he's like, oh, do you want my copy of Commands and Colours so you can play it more? And then I stickered like 10 blocks, maybe 20. And I haven't looked at it since because I'm scared to even open the box to even think about it. So.
That's one of the more overwhelming things about these type of games is, if you don't realize it, is that it's like, oh, right, this is going to be great. And not only do you have this monster rule book 9 times out of 10, but then you have like all this stickers. But what's really funny is that I even know people who don't mind doing that, and they'll even clip the counters, right? It's
I
funny.
don't clip counters. I don't have time for that.
Why don't they come pre-stickered? I mean, are they just too lazy to sticker the games themselves?
I think it's more of a production issue, because I know GMT Games is really good at making their games as affordable as they can. So they, they're good, high quality games. It's just, sometimes it takes a little TLC to get them up and going, which is fine. It makes you more invested.
I would say stickering is a fairly standard, like it becomes kind of obscene when you have the amount of stickers here, but that's just how they're able to have these nice chunky standing on their own wooden pieces that, that's the whole point of it, is that these are standing up. They could have, in this game, from what I'm looking at and from what I'm seeing, it seems like they could have just used hex or just counters. However, had they used counters and only counters, then they would have just been little stacks. And I think that really it just helps with the accessibility here. Does that sound accurate, Katie?
Yeah, I think accessibility and ease. Like, I play a lot of war games where you do just use counters, and that's fine. But I think, for one, it looks more attractive anyway, in my opinion. I know that's not an issue to everybody, but if you are trying to get people into the hobby, or trying to get people that don't usually play war or war style games into the hobby, then it looks nice, and it is just easier to see what's going on. You're not having to keep going through stacks. You've just got all of your army nice and clear. You can see all the units. They're all different colors as well. Just makes it a lot easier to play the game, and like you said, more accessible.
Absolutely. So yeah, and I think that stickering, like, if a game comes with 5 stickers or 10 stickers, nobody's going to complain. It's just when you're stickering this many things, and I'm not a huge fan of the stickering, just solely because, I feel like I'm never doing it right. Like, I'm not like, my tensile accuracy is.
You like put a sticker on it slightly crooked, and you're like, I ruined it.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't bother me, and that apparently also makes me not a real war gamer, because I just throw them on, and as long as you can see what's going on, does it matter? Apparently it matters. But one of my very good friends will only buy used war games because they're stickered and the counters are clipped, and you get nice laminated player aids and everything's ready to go. So that's a bit of advice.
That's a good idea.
War games.
That's funny. So, so what do you think, Katie, specifically the card playing system? What is added to the card playing system here in Commands and Colors? Like, the cards, is this, in your opinion, is this the strongest part of the game? And how does it work for differentiating each side? Does each side get a specific amount of cards? I know that when I've played this in different scenarios, in Memoir 44, the German player would be limited as to how many cards they had, but that was supposed to sort of represent that the Germans were kind of caught off guard in this battle, whereas the Americans had a much larger amount of card pool to start with and were drawing more just in general. Does that sound like something that they use in Commands and Colors?
Yes, you have a hand of 4 to 6 cards, depending on the side you play, and it can also be the scenario. So it's that kind of gives it more complexity as well, and that's kind of the number of cards reflecting the history of the battle and the skills of whatever leader you've got. And I, off the top of my head, I'll be honest, I haven't played. I wanted to try and get a game of this in today, but I didn't end up going to where I was supposed to go. I slept instead.
Sleep is good. Sleep is good.
Sleep is good. But I think the cards on either side are actually the same, and I think it's one of those things where. Sorry, I'm trying to get my words out. With card-driven games, it's not always going to benefit you what hand you draw, and I think that's something that I really like, because it's a hex and counter game, of course. So you've got the center of the board, you've got the left side of your board, and then you've got the right, and each card will depict where you can fight, how many spaces forward you can go, if that's going to be in the left, the center, the right, etc. And sometimes it's going to get to a point where all your army are left in the left, and your hand is only for the right, and that's can be quite frustrating.
Yes.
That's happened to me most games I've played of this. So you know, even though you're thinking on your feet, you also have to think about that straight from the beginning of the game, because you don't want to be left with a game of, you know, you can't really do anything. I can't remember what happens if that does happen. What happens? Can you remember?
Thanks.
Insert thinking here.
No, it is frustrating, and that's something I really enjoy with the card. But it's not just the cards. You have got your combination of your dice rolling as well, and I think they work really nicely together. So there is a bit of luck. You do have to think on your feet, but there is still some strategy, making sure you're not backing yourself into a corner, literally, as well.
Yeah, you got to be careful when you're going to use the only card you have that activates this unit, you know. And the thing is, you are able, though, to sometimes use your cards to activate a unit and then end your turn in a spot where now you know you can activate it with a different card. So you are kind of you're able to, like, sort of make decisions because, you know, like, think about it like this, that you've got a hand of 4 cards. Well, you're only ever playing 1 per turn usually.
Yes.
That can change, but it's almost like you're able to see into the future what all options you have at your disposal. It's like, you know, these are the guys that are calling in Memoir 44. Here in Commands and Colors Ancients, I think it especially, you know, like the battles are a lot more, you know, like your generals to communicate with each other have to be right standing next to each other, and that definitely makes sense for this sort of a system. And then so Battle Cry did that too, which would have been prior to any sort of like radio communication that they were able to do. So we've talked a little about the cards. Do you feel that there are any cards in this deck that are like somewhat difficult to use, or do you feel like it's more situational overall?
I think situational, because the cards are pretty straightforward with what you can actually do. You know, you can move 3 spaces to the left, and depending on what units you've got, obviously if you're cavalry, you're going to be able to run a bit further than if you're on your feet with a spear, but then you can throw different things. So dependent, not explaining this very well, depending on what unit you are, you're going to have different things that you can do in different cards. So I think the only frustrating thing or complex thing is just making sure your cards match with what units you've got on the board. But it's more situational than card difficulty, I'd say.
This is starting to sound like a really heavy strategy game, which is scary.
It really is not. No, Kate, you should not be scared by that. Really, like, we're picking apart the simplicity of the game and looking for the depth within it. And I think that, Katie, you did a really great job of being able to say, you know, like the way what units you have on the board and the way that that sort of corresponds with what cards you're looking at. You know, you might have one extremely powerful unit, and you might have, you know, prepped yourself for this giant swarm. But if you didn't take into consideration what you can activate, you can end up sitting there like, oh, I can't draw a card. And yes, it can be frustrating. And I think you specifically used the word frustrating, Katie, in your blog post, that this game is like enjoyable in a frustrating way. It's almost like you're using the word frustrating as in a positive light, which I find kind of interesting, a bit curious to me. But you know, it's something though where when you can't draw the card, that can be part of it. But you know, there's a lot more to it before drawing the card. And I think one of the things, like a Wargamer adage is, and TC, I think you're the one who first told me this, maybe, that if your dice game was decided by a die roll,
you've already lost.
Then why'd you let it get that way? Yeah, why did you let it come to that? Because, yeah. So, to what degree, Katie, do you believe that what I said makes any sense at all? And also, you know, explain what you meant by frustrating.
A lot of people say this because maybe I'm a rare breed, I don't know, but it is frustrating, but I don't think that is a negative connotation, and I definitely didn't use it in that way, because one of the reasons I play board games is because I like to challenge myself. So I like a challenge. I like being able to overcome obstacles. I like being able to, I'm not a competitive person, but I like being able to win. And I've worked hard to get there, if that makes sense. And I think that's how frustrating, sorry, let me get my words out.
No, you're fine.
Ramble.
You're doing great.
That's what I mean by frustrating, is that, you know, you want to do well and it's a bit of a challenge and it's not easy, you know, and that's not a bad thing. You know, some people do like games that's just a walk in the park, you move some things, you do this, you do that. A lot of people that I know play games because they want that challenge, and it is frustrating. I mean, it is hard work and it does burn your brain a little bit, and that's what I mean by frustrating. It's not that I'm annoyed and I don't want to play it. I thought I might have been. But yeah, it's just that challenge, being able to overcome stuff. And that's what I really like about war games, actually, because I've played a lot of, going off tangent a little bit again, but I've played a lot of Euro games and I've kind of nailed that. So it was kind of on to the next thing. And they share similar mechanics in some ways, but it's, again, challenging my brain, challenging me, a new challenge, yeah.
Yeah, Kate, I just want to echo I like your definition of frustration, because my definition of frustration, I think you could easily get behind this because you love this game as much as I do, is when you're playing Twilight Struggle as the Americans and you get your first hand of cards and they're all Russian. And you're like, holy moly, this is going to be like the crappiest turns. I've just got to figure out a way to survive this.
The justice there is that your opponent's probably sitting on a handful of your cards. So,
it's possible.
Plays out differently.
There's nothing, the feeling of going, oh my gosh, this is all red. I got to survive this round and not get to the point with, that to me, and I like that challenge. I like figuring out how I'm going to navigate this minefield in my hand.
Well, my definition of frustration and frustrating is actually just TC. So he's right here. You can just talk to him.
I think it is quite an interesting choice of word. Maybe I could have word that better in blog posts, but I think I
don't think you did a bad job there. I think, honestly, Katie, that's a window into a really, in my opinion, a very insightful perspective that really tends to happen when you're wanting to challenge yourself. And I was interested by that. I wasn't looking for you to change or go back on that. I was looking to question you so much as I was looking to pick into your brain there. And I think you told us what you mean by that. And I'm very satisfied with what you said.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
I thought it was a fantastic answer.
Yeah. So let's bring it back here a little bit to the specific battles in Commands and Colors Ancients. So of these types of battles, what type of tactics can you apply that you know from other card-driven games? Because this is a card-driven game. What sort of what story arc, if you will, or what sort of strategy flowchart? We all love flowcharts if we play GMT and coin games, right? But what sort of decision branching happens in your brain when you start a scenario, and how can that change when you've played different scenarios? Have you played different scenarios, or has it always been the same one?
Yeah, so I've only played a couple of games of this, so I haven't played all of the scenario. Well, there's 50, so of course I haven't. But yeah, it can be different. But I think what am I trying to? Sorry, it's just going to take me a minute to answer this one. Sure. I think it's just about, what do I do? That again depends on your cards, and just depends on. I don't have a preference to which side I play. Maybe that's because I haven't played it enough to decide what I like better or what's more of interest to me. Going back to theme, but I think it's just one thing I'd say that I've learned. Is definitely not to, like I said, back myself into a corner and really start to think about movement quite early on. So I'm really starting to get your heavy infantry usually at the back, I think. So it's about just making sure that you've got a well-rounded army throughout the game and you're not leaving as if you were in a battle, you're not leaving your light infantry on their own in a corner where they're going to be able to be knocked down pretty quickly. And that's something that in the first couple of games was my mistake, that I was using all of my heavy infantry really quickly because they do cool stuff and they're more powerful. But then I was leaving my light infantry just stood in the battlefield on their own, ready to be knocked down, and that kind of lost me the game. So I think it's just about thinking, and this sounds quite obvious or whatever, but what in that actual situation, what would you want to do? And I guess that comes back to the theme thing, actually, where I said theme doesn't really interest me usually, and in this game it didn't initially. But obviously you don't want to leave all of your light infantry on their own. You don't want to leave, you want to make sure that you've got a well-rounded army throughout the battle. That makes sense. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's the kind of strategy I've started to learn, because you don't know what cards you're going to get all the time. So you want to make sure you've got a bit of everything to be able to fight throughout the game. And then you've got your dice. You can't really pick those, which is a shame.
Certainly. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. So different scenarios can challenge you to try to, maybe they try to challenge that specific overall goal to keep yourself well-rounded and keep yourself together with tools that you can use to, you know, to be able to activate anything. So basically, like what you're saying, though, is hand management is a large part of this game. And part of that hand management is kind of knowing, like, you want to have your hands somewhat correspond to the composition of what troops you have where. Like, you know, what really sucks, and this happened to me when I was playing Memoir 44, and this is where I would use the word frustrating, and to me, like, I would use it, and I wouldn't mean the same thing you do, Katie, though I do respect your definition. For me, it was frustrating when I was totally concentrated on the eastern side of the map, and I drew cards that were anything but eastern. You know, it was like, okay, well, you know, I had to like look in the rule book, like, what do you do if you can't activate anything? So, which is like
isn't backing yourself into a corner so fun?
It is. Well, this scenario started me backed into a corner. It was, but I think that was kind of part of the idea, was that the Germans were kind of caught off guard. So it was like, you know, unless you're lucky and you got Johnny on the spot there that's actually seeing the enemy coming, you're going to sit there and it's going to take you a while to actually notice that the Americans are coming for you. So it was an interesting thing. I don't know if that same sort of experience has ever befallen you, Katie, where you just didn't have any cards. And I think you've talked a little bit about backing yourself into a corner, but do you feel like you had the control over that situation?
I think, yes, there's always going to be, I know I kind of said there'll be nothing you can do. There'll always be something you can do, but it might not always work in your favor. So you might run yourself straight into the opposition's army, for example, or do something you really don't want to do. But yeah, I think that's where the strategy comes in. It's, you know, I keep talking about simple gameplay, but you need to be aware that, you know, you're gonna have to move all of your units at some point, and you've got 3 sections of the board, and just not leaving yourself open or vulnerable even. And different scenarios have different layouts on the board. So in some scenarios, you're going to be stronger than your opposition. So you're going to have not more, what's the word, advantage, but you're going to start off maybe in a stronger position. But I think it's just being able to maintain that as well. And just not, it's a bit like Euro games in, there's always going to be more than one thing you're thinking about. So you're going to be thinking about a lot of different things. And that's quite nice because of the crossover of Euro games, war games as well. So, but that's what I'd say. Do not leave any of your very weak people or your light infantry on their own.
Yeah, that's why they call them light infantry. Yes, it'd be like leaving your child alone at the mall.
They're great in a group, but yeah, it's just about keeping an eye on what you're doing. That's where the strategy comes in, and keeping an eye on cards. And I'm someone, when I play games, I'm quite impulsive. which is not good. Like, I'll just make decisions and think, yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's great for learning games, Katie. That is amazing for learning games. Seriously, I want people like you all the time that I'm teaching a game. I don't want somebody who's like, hold on. Explain everything before I go. And do it again every round. No, just do something. We're learning the game.
But I'd say in this game, do not be impulsive. Do not just play cards for the sake of it. Really look at what's on the board. Really look what's in your hand and make the best of the cards.
But I love just playing cards at random and being the most jerkiest jerk that I can to the other player playing with me.
In this game, it's probably going to get you your ass kicked, though. That's the thing. You can't be impulsive in these kind of games. I'm starting to learn.
Yeah, for sure. You need to come at it with an absolute strategy of what you're going to be doing and an idea of how to play it. For me, it takes games before I usually get there with any of these systems. But I do think that in general, if you are a inexperienced wargamer, but you're interested, maybe you're in the same situation that Katie was in, where, you know, like, you felt like you got Euro games. You know, you played enough of them to where you felt like you had a good grasp. Not that you, like, moved on from that, but it's like, hold on, what about these war games that I hear people being interested in? And, you know, by people, I mean you, Katie, talking about war games, because it's not exactly too many voices out there that are speaking loudly that are actually looking to bring people in and not just, you know, cater to an audience that's already established. So I think that, would you say that Commands and Colors is a good starting point for people looking in that are curious into war games?
Yes, definitely.
And why?
Why? You know, I'm still quite new to war games as well, so I can speak from. Well, I'm probably not now, but you know, I'm recent. I think it is definitely one, because it, like I said earlier, and I know I keep repeating myself, but it all comes down to, it's simple to learn, but it's going to take time to build that strategy up, and it's not the kind of war game. I think sometimes having a lot of stuff can be very intimidating, and it's not all about appearance. It is obviously about gameplay as well. But if you look at, disclaimer, some people think this isn't a war game. Twilight Struggle, there's a lot of stuff on that board. You know, coin games, there's so many counters, so many different things.
And they're very precise games as well.
Sides to them, you know, it's like those aren't active; those are actually inactive.
And that's fine, and I don't have a problem with that. But from people that I play games with, sometimes they just look at that and they're like, "Whoa, like, that's too much stuff going on. That's too many counters, or that map, like, that's crazy." So I think from an appearance point of view, it's nice and straightforward. You've not got too much going on. Like I said earlier, gameplay is really straightforward to learn the actual rules. Not that that's something. It's not that I don't think people that don't play war games can't pick up rules, but it's when you're thinking differently to how you would when you play Euro games, it's a benefit.
It's a new paradigm, right? There's a different system.
Exactly.
They call those, I think, heuristics, where it's like, okay, well, this might not be the exact same mechanism, but the heuristic of, you know, like early game, getting economy going, late game, turning that into victory points. Like, that's a heuristic that, you know, that is not immediately apparent to people who have not played a Euro game before. So there's some new heuristics right here, but is this a kind of nice entry point for those?
Yeah, definitely. You've got your strategy, you've got your different kind of armies with different infantries, you've got your dice rolling and how that's going to be used in a battle scenario. So that's something that's quite new as well. Like, obviously in non-war games there isn't that, so that's something new to learn, and to be able to learn the idea of that but without having to troll through tables and all that kind of stuff. So it's just, it gives you a nice flavor at the mechanics, and just a nice introduction. So I think it is. Once I've stickered my copy, I'm definitely going to be introducing a friend. He's interested, so that's what I'm going to be doing soon, hopefully.
So, like, if I want to become like a massive wargamer like you, my new idol, I should start out with this game.
I think it's definitely a good one to start out with. There's a few, but yes, you seem like you're interested in it anyway, and only for me, but maybe that's because I haven't played it enough thematically. I don't find it that interesting yet, but maybe when I play more scenarios and different sides, that might come later on. But down to gameplay, 100%. I think this is one for new wargamers.
And yay! So, Kate, this system though, for sure, like if you're not going to get in at Command and Colors Ancients, there is Memoir 44, which has the little plastic pieces that do that's the World War II, and there is Battle Lore, which involves fantasy battles. So, like, you could take your you actually get to sort of like decide the composition of your army, and that kind of compares what you're saying with L5R. So, but this is going to be from your historical wargaming side, and I think then TC is this a specific area that you feel that Carissa would be interested in?
I'm not certain. I have a feeling she'd probably lean more towards Napoleonics.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like she's the more in that Renaissance. Yeah.
I mean, she definitely and maybe possibly the Civil War one, the battle cry, but the system itself, I have a feeling would be good. And what's really interesting about this system, in particular, is I've met a lot of people who are into war games specifically because of this system got them into it.
Yep.
So it's I want to echo Katie.
This is your gateway game for wargaming.
A great gateway game, just in general. I mean, it's solid. It's good.
I can't wait to play it.
Yep. And if all you've ever played is like Stratego or other like Axis and Allies, these games will a lot of times offer something that you can play it, like you've mentioned, Katie. It's not a super long game, so you can get multiple scenarios played out and a lot of more expandability, and just kind of introduce you to mechanisms you'll find in some more robust titles, right?
Yes. And I think as well, even though I've learnt I've played maybe the heavier side of war games now or whatever, it's something that still it's quite nice just to get onto the table because it is quite quick and there's so much replayability with it. And I know that's sometimes something that people worry about, but I can see, even though I haven't played it for a while because it just hasn't been the right circumstance to, I feel like this is probably one that I can keep playing over and over for a long time. I don't think I'm going to get bored of it anytime soon because there's so many scenarios and it's just such a nice game to play. I know that's not a very good review, but yeah, it is. It's just a pleasant game.
Mm-hmm. And while we're on this, I just want to say it's a really hard game to get. And if we can get a lot of people listening to this,
P500.
We could go P500, the 6th edition of this, or the 6th printing, so we can actually get this out and purchasable. So if you want this, please go to the GMT website and P500. It's like 146, but it needs 500 to get the reprint going. So please get out there.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, for coming on to tell us all about Command and Colors Ancients, and I've really enjoyed the discussions we've had about your perspective. And it believe it or not, coming into this, I thought you and TC were going to be the most the most similar. But I think that largely you've kind of like opened this door, because I'm also a Eurogamer, like you've been mentioning.
Yeah. And
I'm interested now in pursuing some of these games that you're talking about, because I've also been looking, to like dip my feet into wargaming a bit more.
That's very good. I'm smiling right now. That's awesome.
Thank you, Katie. You're doing my job here. Try to get Joe to play more war games. I appreciate it.
TC's job is him like being like, oh yeah, you can totally play that game, and then you can start punching each other in the face. It's so great. It's so great. You get to punch each other in the face, then you get punched in the face, and everybody's losing teeth, and we all have black eyes. It's just a good old time.
It sounds like a great time, man.
He's like a hooligan. He's like a soccer fan, like one of those, like you've got isn't that something that I've seen parodies of it, I guess, in TV and whatnot? But TC'd be one of those guys wearing like the striped shirts and like,
See, one of my
sitting around a
favorite
table playing
mechanics in
games.
time of crisis is that your armies aren't restricted by movement. So I could just like march all over the board of this one army and just randomly hit someone, and they never see it coming.
Your armies, you don't even have to move from territory to adjacent territories.
You have to move them, but there's not any restrictions on like going through like mountains or stuff. It's really simplified.
Oh,
Other armies don't block your army. You just go hop, 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 hop. Dun, dun, I hit you in the face. Why?
Yep.
Why not?
That right there is TC in a nutshell. Why did you do that? Why not?
Yeah, I was like Katie. It's really fun. I was playing Here I Stand. And we were like 4 hours into this, and I was playing the Protestants. And it took me forever to get my army going as the Protestants because I had to like do a conversion and get the Catholics off my butt. I finally got my armies, and I just went and I hit Spain just because I want to see how it worked. And the guy came over and smashed me into oblivion. He asked why I did that, and I said, I don't know, it looked like fun. And his reaction was, that was an attack of whimsy. It was perfect. It was so great. It was one of the greatest moments I've ever had gaming. I was like, yeah, pretty much.
TC is the human equivalent of a dice.
No.
Which is why, like, it's why we host this together, because either one of us would push it solely in one direction, but together we somehow, like, it's like two magnetic forces that keep the thread of it going down. And appreciate you walking on that fine tightrope with us here, Katie. You've done a really good job of kind of playing both sides of the Longview podcast.
Very diplomatic at times.
Yeah.
Wait, am I my own side of the podcast?
Yes, you are, Kate.
I would say, Kate, that in largely you are like the reason that TC is able to be who he is. You are the future. You are.
Whoa.
Yes.
I am the future, past and present.
You are the future, and I think it's so awesome, Kate, that you're getting into these games and that you're using even this podcast recording as a chance to learn more about the hobby and this specific game.
Mm-hmm. I am glad to be here.
Yeah. Is there pink? Can you play pink? Hold on. There's got to be an expansion. Which Kate, you like playing blue, right? You'd rather be blue than
blue
pink
is
anyway.
my color.
Yes, but my wife likes pink. That's why we did the whole episode on pink. So of course we got to check and see, is there a pink when it looks like there's purple, there's green, there's blue. Come on, pink. Well, that's I know, Katie, it's been really great and loved having you on. We hope to have you on in the future to talk more about other games as you continue to explore this wargaming, from a Eurogamer standpoint, which is a very interesting perspective to me personally. And hope that you had a good time, and we'll look forward to our next meeting.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much for having me.
It was a pleasure, Katie.
It was amazing. Brah.
Woo, thank you.
All right, thanks to everybody who joined us, listening and listening in on our YouTube here. I specifically have to say hi, Mom, because my parents joined. Yay! They figured it out. Woo! Yeah, my mom and dad. So anyway, hey guys, and also Norm from Saskatoon is there, and TC. You're just always gonna have a weird name. Snake, just straight up Snake Plissken. Are you gonna get?
I was bored today. I decided to be Snake Plissken today.
You can't. You have a job that requires you to look at a microscope quite a bit. So I suppose that you could probably wear an eye patch.
Yeah, probably. I am kind of blind in both eyes, so it kind of makes sense.
You probably have the nicer microscopes that involve like you looking with both your eyes, right?
Yeah, and they're automated. Yeah, Okay. Just so you know, Katie, I cut tissue for a living. I'm a histotech. I work for pathologists. So when you say you're disorganized, trust me, I've seen doctors who are way more disorganized than you could ever hope to be.
That's a really cool job, though. A really cool job.
Yeah.
Busy man.
It kind of makes it odd. So when Joe talks about enjoying his job teaching and things he likes to do, I kind of have to be quiet, because if I talk about the things I like doing, it gets kind of creepy.
So when you mentioned, TC, that you're like, oh, Carissa doesn't care about Andy and Abyss, Cuba Libre, I was just like, oh.
I can imagine
That's me right there.
I'm serious. She did not like
the Park. Like that. Those. Oh, they're so cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's honesty. She did not like coin games because.
No, I get it, but I didn't say anything, but I did think like, oh, that's what I like. Well,
there was silence,
and then
there was silence. Yes, and it was good. That's this episode of the Long View podcast. Catch us on the next Long View.